Hello there, it's Samantha. Welcome back to my channel. If you're here, hi, my name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I'm coming to you with my first ever secret TBR video, and I'm simultaneously excited and also like nervous. So I have a to-read shelf on Goodreads, as I'm sure a lot of people do, which is very full. So I'm going to be reading the 5 lowest rated books on my to-read shelf. So this is going to be based on the average rating. Secret TBRs are obviously not a new idea, so I'm not trying to claim this as my own. Hello, it's Samantha from the future. Quick thing, I did say that I didn't want to take credit for this, but I also want to go further than that and give credit where credit is due, because at the time I couldn't remember whose channel I'd seen this on. I think I originally saw this on Sarah's channel from Sarah Without an H, and I've also seen Books and Lala do this, so I will link them all down below. So yeah, that's where the inspiration came from. I'm not trying to claim this idea as my own. Go check them out. They all make fantastic videos. And let's go back to what you were watching before. So let's just talk about the 5 books that I'm going to be reading. So the lowest rated book on my to-read shelf is Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. This book has had so many bad reviews. Yeah, this book is apparently really bad. So I'm like really nervous to read it because I know I'm probably going to hate it, but I'm gonna do it. This has an average rating of 3.12 stars on Goodreads, which is very low. The next book I'm gonna read is Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. This book has an average rating of 3.24 on Goodreads, which is also pretty low. I've heard a lot of negative reviews about this, so I'm pretty nervous to read it because I have really enjoyed a lot of Adam's other books. So yeah, I'm kind of nervous about this one. I am still curious to read it and make up my own mind. The next book I have is Inked by Eric Smith. This has an average rating of 3.37 on Goodreads. This is a book that I actually got from the author for review many years ago and I never got to it, which is really bad on my part, but I am going to read it. I was hearing really good things about it at the time, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it since, and it might be because it has such a low rating and it's not that good. I don't know, we'll see. The 4th book on my list is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This one has an average rating of 3.38 on Goodreads. I requested this book from NetGalley and I just didn't get to it because I was like waiting for a good time to read it, because basically this book is like a slasher sort of horror kind of book and I don't really read that. I've never read a horror before. I'm a wimp. Like, I don't watch horror movies ever because I can't deal with it. So I don't really know why. I think I requested this mainly because of the name Stephanie Perkins, because I used to love Anna and the French Kiss. I haven't read that in years. So I'm nervous to read this one, also because I think it probably will scare me, but also because I've heard really bad things. I'm really gonna try and make this video like not just me hating on these books the whole time, because I might really love them. You never know. And the final one on my list is one that I got in a fairy loot box many years ago and I just never got to it because it was in storage, and that is Vassa in the Night by Sarah Porter. This book has a 3.44 rating on Goodreads. I have never really heard anyone talking about this book. The cover is pretty stunning. It's a pretty book, but I'm scared. Anyway, so those are the 5 books that I'm gonna read. Let's see how it goes. Hello, we finished the first book. Well, kind of. We haven't finished it, but we're here to talk about it. So as you will have seen from the graphic, I changed the order of how I wanted to read these, and I actually wanted to do highest rated to lowest rated instead of lowest to highest, because I thought it would be more interesting that way. So yeah, we started with the highest rated, and we're gonna finish off with the lowest rated, but actually in reality I did read the lowest rated one first, so you're gonna see this exact same outfit at the end of this video. But for now, let's talk about the first one. So yeah, we're starting off with the highest rated, which was Vassa in the Night by Sarah Porter. This has a rating of 3.44 on Goodreads, which in terms of like generally like a 3-star rating, that's not bad at all. But in terms of Goodreads, where people notoriously rate very highly, lower than a 3.5 is relatively low. Even though this is the highest rated, it's still not particularly high rated in terms of Goodreads. This is about our main character called Vassa. She lives in this alternative Brooklyn. It's kind of like urban fantasy / magical realism. It's a retelling of the story of Vasilisa the Beautiful, which is apparently Russian folklore. And then in Vassa's neighborhood, for some reason, the nights have started to just drag on. They don't know why. There's also this weird convenience store where if you're caught stealing, they behead you. And Vassa has a little doll which talks and is alive called Erg, and they need to break the curse that's happening on their city. I DNF'd to this book. I read 96 pages and I hated every minute of it and was like, you know what? I cannot push through. Yeah, this was hot trash. Well, okay, hot trash might be too mean. This book is just not for me. I'm not really into retellings that much. Sometimes I really enjoy them, but like this was not one of the ones I enjoyed. I just thought it was incredibly boring. Vassa, our main character, was very passive and just so boring to read about. It was also very gruesome and disgusting. I would definitely classify this as horror in terms of how gruesome it was, which is not my genre, even though the next book I'm gonna read is a horror. But that's fine. We're ready for it. We're not. Main character was bland. The writing was confusing. I didn't like where the story was going. It was very boring. And yeah, I thought Erg was annoying, and I think she was supposed to be like the sort of comedic relief and kind of like one of the best characters. I didn't like her. I'm very annoyed because I got this book in a book subscription box when I used to love those for some reason, even though I've never been into like book merch particularly. It's not really ever been my thing, but I did used to buy the book subscription boxes because it was such a big thing on BookTube. Big regrets. I wasted well over £100 on that. Anyway, so yeah, kind of annoying that I spent money on this, like a lot more money than it would, well, I wouldn't have bought this because like this just never sounded like something that would be up my alley, and it definitely isn't. I DNF'd it. I'd probably rate it like a 1 star, and I think I would hate it if I continued. So yeah, that's the first book. Now on to book number 2, which I'm very scared about, but yeah, I will just talk to you in a couple of days or a day, who knows, when I've finished the next book. But actually, I'm gonna film the last book now because I already read it, but you can just pretend like you don't realize. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Back to talk about There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins, aka book number 2. I didn't actually read this book. I read 5% and I'm too much of a wimp. I cannot do it. I don't want to force myself to read a horror book when I know that I can't deal with horror. Like, to let you know how much of a wimp I am, like this is the extent. I've been in the cinema before and seen a trailer, just a trailer for a movie, a horror movie, and then not been able to sleep. So that's how much of a wimp I am. And I just thought, you know what? Instead of freaking myself out for possibly years, I'm just gonna give this book a miss. I did try. I read the first 5% and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just can't deal because I cannot deal with horror. I'm so stressed already. I was like literally just trying to read it and I'm just stressed. I'm not gonna read it, but I will tell you what it's about. So it essentially follows our main character, Makani, and she is originally from Hawaii, but something happened in her past and she was shipped off to live with her grandmother in Nebraska, and she starts to fall for this guy who's very mysterious and kind of an outsider, and then one by one the students start to get murdered, and it's very gruesome, apparently. It's sort of like a thriller and horror. If it was a thriller, maybe I could deal, but because it's horror, I'm scared, okay? I can't do it. I'm not gonna put myself through that, I'm sorry. So I think it's got a little bit of a contemporary aspect to it, like I think there's some romance in it, but also it does have that horror aspect and I can't deal. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that the first 2 books in this video I haven't actually fully read, but I don't wanna put myself through it right now. Maybe another time, but today's not that day. Hello, we are back to talk about book number 3, which is Inked by Eric Smith. This is an average rating of 3.37 on Goodreads. Let's just talk about it. So if you don't know what this book is about, this book is set in a fantasy world wherein tattoos decide what you're going to do with your life. When you turn 18, you are inked by the scribes, and essentially the ink is kind of magical and it changes and shifts on your skin, but whatever they tattoo you with is what you are going to do with your life. At the beginning of the book, our main character Kanem wants to run away because he is convinced that he's not going to get inked with something that will suit him, so he's all set to run away, and then the day before his inking, he upsets the scribe who is due to ink him, and essentially through some reasons, he has to escape with his best friend Drea and his new companion Kenzie, and they have to escape to this place called the Sanctuary, where it's the only place where they're going to be safe, and they learn all these truths about their society along the way. Yeah, that's the plot of the book. I ended up giving this a 2 out of 5 stars. I wanted to love this. I kind of liked the idea of the ink and the sort of government deciding what you're going to do with your life. It was an interesting concept, but I don't think it was particularly well executed. This is a very short novel. It's only 250 pages, so there's not a lot of room to explore things in great detail. And I just think that there was like too much that was trying to happen, and then nothing was explored to the full extent that it needed to be explored, in my opinion, which made it kind of boring for me because it just couldn't hold my interest because it was trying to do too much, and then because it didn't explore things properly, I was just bored. I was like, I don't care because you haven't really explained this in the best detail. It's not a very compelling read. There was also a complete lack of urgency because every time some sort of conflict arose, essentially it would be completely calm, and then within 2 sentences there would all of a sudden be some sort of conflict, and then by the next sentence it would be resolved. And so it just had a complete lack of urgency as everything was resolved very quickly. Again, I think this is due to the fact that the book is so short, and I just feel like if the book had been longer, it would have given the author more time to flesh out not only the world, but also the characters and the plot. Because another issue I had with it was the characters. I didn't like a single one of them. I just didn't feel attached to them. It's not that I disliked them. Actually, I didn't like Kanem particularly. He was annoying. I found Kanem to be extremely immature. I also didn't really like Drea. She was one of the few female characters we had in this book, and she was not particularly strong for most of it. She was just kind of a very meek character, considering there were only about 2 prominent female characters in this story. I really wish she would have been less of a doormat, but it was weird because it kind of read like a middle grade. That's how immature the characters were, but it wasn't, because the characters were supposed to be 18, and that just seemed ridiculous. They didn't seem 18 at all. As I said, I think if the novel had been longer, it would have given the author more time to explore everything. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars, and I'm glad that I'm done with it. I'm glad that I finally read it. But yeah, let's just move on to book number 4. Okay, we made it to book number 4, and I'm wearing the exact same outfit as I was wearing in book number 2 because I'm filming this at the same time. Whatever, it's fine. I read these in completely the wrong order, but doesn't matter. Book number 4 is Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. I've read a couple books by Adam Silvera in the past, and I've enjoyed most of them. My favorite is History Is All You Left Me. Fantastic. But this is his first attempt at like fantasy, and this basically follows 2 brothers, Emil and Brighton, and basically they live in this world where there are these people who have like superpowers. They're called spellwalkers, I think. I don't know, I'm very confused. And essentially Brighton has always wanted to be a spellwalker, and he's heard about people getting powers on their 18th birthday, and the book starts on their 18th birthday because Emil and Brighton are twins, and Brighton thinks that he might get powers because sometimes people get powers later on. Anyway, Brighton has a YouTube channel where he does lots of stuff about the spellwalkers. It's kind of like an ode to them. He like films them when they're fighting and stuff like that. But Emil and Brighton get into a fight, and during this fight it becomes apparent that Emil is actually the one who has powers, and it just goes from there. I enjoyed this book, but also I have no idea what went on. I don't know how anything works in this world, and I have finished it, but I don't understand. The world building in this book wasn't great, so I think that's the main complaint that people have, and the reason why it's only got a 3.24 is because, yeah, the world building was kind of all over the place, very confusing. And there were also like quite a few characters, and some of them were just introduced, and we were kind of like supposed to, it felt like we were supposed to know who they were, but I was like, I have no idea who this person is, obviously, because they've just been introduced. And yeah, I don't know. I really liked Emil and I liked Ness. And as usual, I liked Adam Silvera's writing style. It's very easy to read and I enjoy reading it. But as I said, it was just very confusing. Like, I don't know. There were like these things called spellwalkers, celestials, specters, bloodwalkers. And I don't know the difference between all 4 of those. I know some are evil, some are good, and I'm just very confused. So yeah, I think I'm gonna end up rating it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Not because I didn't enjoy it, as I said I did, but I'm just very confused, which means I can't really rate it higher because I just don't really, I don't understand what happened particularly. I might read the sequel, in which case I'll have to reread this book and maybe things will become more clear. Okay, we've made it to the end of the video, even though I'm literally filming this at the same time that I filmed the other bit, but it's fine, we're pretending like I'm not. The last book that I'm reading for this challenge, or that I read for this challenge, was Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. And I'll tell you what the plot is first before I tell you my thoughts. This book, if you don't know, follows your main character, Andy, also known as the Bloody Baroness. Prepare yourself, that gets mentioned a lot. And basically Andy is part of a group of 4 space pirates. There's Andy, Lyra, Breck, and Gilly, or Jilly. I don't know, I read it as Gilly, but maybe it's Jilly? It's probably Jilly, but I'm gonna call her Gilly because that's how I read it in my head. It follows those 4 girls. They are space pirates. They travel around the galaxy doing all of their terrible things, and a mission goes wrong, and all of a sudden they're dragged into this mission to save the general's son who was kidnapped years ago and taken to the enemy's planet. And along the way, Andy's ex-boyfriend who betrayed her comes back into the picture, and I didn't hate it. I'm so surprised. So I started reading this originally when it came out in 2017. 2018. I was so excited and I started reading it and I was so bored. I read 100 pages, I put it down, and I didn't pick it up again until like a week ago. I don't know, it was like the 23rd of June or something like that, whatever. So I picked it up again and I was having so much fun. somewhat. I don't know. It's a really weird one for me because the thing is, I am very much like a character-driven reader. Like if it has great characters, I don't care about what the plot is particularly. And this one, I hated the characters, but I enjoyed the plot to a degree. We'll just talk about it, shall we? The only thing I really liked about this book was the plot. I thought it was pretty fun. It was fairly quick moving at times. Definitely the cliffhanger makes me want to read the next book, even though I hated all the characters. And I do actually already own the next book, so I probably will read it at some point, just because why not? Also, I've heard it's better. So the plot was the only thing I liked. Now onto things I didn't like. Basically, the main issue with this book is that it lacked editing. It needed to be edited so much. I don't know what they were thinking publishing this at this point in time. It definitely needed to be edited. In terms of like the actual writing that needed editing, like they used this particular narrative technique where they repeated lines. And I know that a lot of authors do this, and I think it can be very effective when used sparingly, not when used every single page. I'll read you some examples. So it said, something Andy had seen before, something she knew she should know. She knew exactly what had happened. She knew exactly how guilty she was. Soon she would leave this place. Soon she would take her army and conquer the stars. It was jarring. It was so frequent. I wish I had tabbed this book so that I could tab every single time they did that. That's definitely something I'm going to do when I read the sequel. Another thing I noticed is that they repeated scenes. For example, there was a scene when Dex and Andy were knocked out, and when they came to, one of them would turn to the other and say, how long were we out? That scene was used twice, and it was just weird because it's like, you would think that maybe they would choose a different way to go from one plot point to the next, but they used that exact same thing. There was also ridiculously cheesy dialogue. Like, for example, Hope is a raging asshole. I know everyone makes fun of that line, but I mean, seriously, Hope is a raging asshole. Like, who okayed that line? Also kind of felt like a Guardians of the Galaxy ripoff, like massively. You have this ragtag group of people who are traveling across the galaxy trying to steal things. Kind of felt like a ripoff, and I mean, honestly, if you like Guardians of the Galaxy, you might like this, but also know that going into it, that this is kind of similar. I also felt like the characters were literal carbon copies of other characters you've seen. Like Andy is essentially Selena Sardouthian from the Throne of Glass series. Like, it's so obvious. It also annoyed me that like they had some things they mentioned in this and they didn't explain like, what it was. Like there was this thing called an efflorescent ceremony, and that was mentioned multiple times and never explained what it actually was. It wasn't explained, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but you've mentioned it a couple of times. My last point is that the pacing was just off. Again, this goes down to editing. They should have fixed this, but they didn't. They published it anyway. But this book was really long. I found that the first 150 to 200 pages were pretty good. Ish, apart from obviously the characters being shit and the writing not being that great. By good, I mean entertaining. Like it wasn't good, but it was entertaining. But, you know, it was not bad. It was very action-packed and I actually enjoyed my time reading it. And then we got past that and it was very boring. A lot of that time was just used to develop characters and character relationships, which definitely could have taken place alongside the action, or, you know, alongside other action instead of just boring stuff. And then the last 100 pages did get interesting again, and as I said, I might continue on with the sequel just because I mean I already owed it and it did pique my interest a bit. It wasn't terrible, even though I know I just kind of tore it to shreds, but it wasn't awful. But it's definitely not like a good book. Objectively, it's not a good book. I'm hovering between like a 2.5 to a 3 stars because I typically rate my books off of enjoyment, and even though I hated the characters, I did enjoy my time reading this. So I'll let you know when I come back and give you my order of which books were the best and which were the worst, and I'll tell you what I actually ended up rating this. I will come back to you at some point to finish this off. So we've made it to the end of the video. Time to rank these in order of my least favorite to my favorite out of the lowest rated books. Obviously, I didn't read everything because I just couldn't read There's Someone Inside Your House. I didn't want to do it, especially not at the moment, like during a pandemic where we all have to stay inside. It just seemed foolish to read a book called There's Someone Inside Your House, you know? You feel? So yeah, I was like, maybe I'm not gonna read that one. I might read it at some point in the future when I feel more like it, but today is not that day. So let's wrap everything up. In last place, I think we can all guess what book it's gonna be. It's Vassa in the Night by Sarah Porter. Considering the fact that I got a third of the way into this and hated it, yeah, this is going in last place. This is number 5 on the list. At number 4, we're gonna put Inked by Eric Smith. This one, I already mentioned what was wrong with it. It was just very all over the place and it needed to be fleshed out a lot more. So yeah, this one was number 4. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. And then in third place, I'm gonna put There's Someone Inside Your House. I know I didn't read very much of it, but I know that I like her writing style. And I think if I was less of a wimp, I would enjoy this. So yeah, already from the tiny bit I've read, I think I liked the characters more than I did in Inked. So yeah, that's going in the number 3 spot. I did give the next 2 books the exact same rating, so I'm not sure which order to put them in. So I think in second place, we're going to put Zenith by Sasha Ellsberg and Lindsay Cummings, because even though I enjoyed this probably a little bit more than Infinity Sun, just because I knew what was going on, it was not good. And I think objectively, this is worse than Infinity Sun. Even though I was confused with Infinity Sun, I think that has more promise of being like actually a good book, whereas this, it's just not. So that means our winner is Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. Kind of surprising that like the lower rated ones were actually my favorites. So anyway, that's the end of this experiment. I'm sorry that I didn't read all of the books. I just couldn't do it. I've already apologized, but I'm too much of a wimp. Maybe one day we'll read it and I'll let you know what I think. But yeah, let me know if you want to see a part 2 of this where I read the highest rated books. That is something that I'm planning for the future. But that is all that I have for today's video, so I hope you liked and you did. Please give a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. And I upload videos every Friday, so I will see you next Friday. Bye!